The apartment was cheap. That should have been the first warning. In Tampa, in the middle of summer, a 2-bedroom with a living room and a full kitchen for that price doesn't exist. Not unless something is wrong with it. Not unless the landlord knows something you don't, and he's betting you won't ask the right questions before you sign. We didn't ask. We were 23, newly married, and broke in the specific way that makes you feel like you're winning anyway. Mark and I had just come back from a courthouse wedding. No flowers, no reception, just a judge and Chris standing next to us as our witness. Chris was Mark's oldest friend. Quiet, steady, the kind of person who fixes things without being asked. When we told him we'd found a place, he offered to split rent before we even finished the sentence. We moved in on a Saturday in June. The Florida heat hit us like a wall every time we opened the front door. The apartment was on the second floor of a narrow building that smelled like old wood and mildew. But inside it seemed fine. Small, a little dark, but fine. The floor was the first thing that surprised us. We thought it was brown, old hardwood worn down the color of mud. We mopped it twice before we realized it was yellow, bright, almost aggressive yellow, buried under years of grime so thick it had changed color entirely. We laughed about it that first night, opened a bottle of wine, sat on the floor because we had no furniture yet, and laughed until our sides hurt. I don't remember laughing much after that. The smell started about a week in. It wasn't constant. That was the thing that made it so hard to dismiss. If it had been there every day, we would have called the landlord, demanded an inspection, maybe broken the lease. But it came and went. One afternoon, it would fill the entire apartment. Thick, sweet, wrong, the unmistakable suggestion of something decaying inside the walls. Then, by evening, it would be gone. No trace, no explanation. We searched everywhere, pulled the couch away from the wall, checked under the sink, went through every cabinet in the kitchen. Nothing. The smell seemed to come from somewhere near the stairs, not the kitchen, not the bathroom, the stairs, that narrow, dim staircase that connected our floor to the entrance below. 12 steps, a wooden railing that wobbled if you held it too hard, and a single overhead light that buzzed faintly when you switched it on. I started noticing the stairs around the same time the smell appeared. I don't mean I noticed them in the way you notice a creaky step or a bad railing. I mean, I became aware of them. The way you become aware of something watching you from across a room. A low-frequency attention that you can't explain and can't turn off. I told myself it was the smell, that I associated the stairs with the odor, and my brain was doing what brains do, building a story around a sensation. That was the rational explanation. I held onto it longer than I should have. The image came to me the third time I used the stairs. I was heading down to check the mail. It was a Tuesday morning, bright outside, nothing unusual. I put my hand on the railing, took the first step, and she was just there, in my mind, fully formed like she'd always been, waiting just below the surface of my thoughts. An old woman, white hair pulled into a tight bun, skin like paper left in the sun too long, and where her eyes should have been nothing. Just black. Not dark brown, not shadow, black. 2 glaring holes that didn't reflect light, didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. I stopped on the third step. My hand gripped the railing hard enough to feel the wobble in my palm. The image was so vivid, so specific, that I actually turned around and looked back up the stairs, certain for one terrible second that she was standing behind me. There was nothing there. Of course there was nothing there. I went and got the mail. I came back up. I didn't say a word. She became a fixture. Every time I used those stairs, she was there, not physically, not in any way I could point to, but present in my mind with a consistency that started to feel less like imagination and more like memory. Like I was remembering her rather than inventing her. The primal fear was the worst part. It wasn't the slow creep of unease you feel watching a horror film. It was something older and faster, the kind of fear that lives in the body before it reaches the brain. My chest would tighten the moment I approached the stairs. My feet would slow without me telling them to. By the third week, I had started planning my day around minimizing trips up and down. I carried everything I needed for the afternoon downstairs in the morning. I sent Mark to get things when I could find an excuse. I told myself I was just being efficient. I never told either of them about her. It sounded insane, and I was 23 and newly married, and the last thing I wanted was for my husband or his best friend to think I was losing my mind in our first shared home. So I kept her to myself. I carried her alone up and down those 12 steps every single day. The cat changed everything. She was a small tortoiseshell kitten, barely 4 months old when we got her. Mark found her outside a gas station, sitting in a parking space like she was waiting for someone specific. He brought her home in his jacket pocket. We hadn't planned on a pet. We kept her anyway. She was fearless everywhere in the apartment. She slept on top of the refrigerator. She attacked the curtains. She sat on Chris's laptop while he worked and refused to move until he acknowledged her, but she would not go near the stairs. The first time we noticed, we thought it was funny. Kittens are strange. Kittens have opinions about things, but it wasn't a preference, it was terror. If you carried her to the top step, she would dig her claws into your arm and go rigid. If you set her down anywhere near the landing, she would bolt, not trot, not walk quickly, sprint full speed low to the ground, hissing, and more than once she ran so fast and so blindly that she hit the wall at the end of the hallway hard enough to make us wince. She never learned. She never got used to it. 3 months in that apartment, and every single time the same response, the same panic, the same blind animal terror. Animals don't imagine things. I thought about that a lot. The smell got worse in August. Tampa in August is its own kind of misery heat, so thick it has weight, air that doesn't move, nights that offer no relief. The apartment held heat like a closed fist. We ran the ceiling fan constantly. We kept the windows open when we could, but the screens had gaps and the mosquitoes found them. The smell that month was different, not stronger, exactly deeper, more insistent. It came twice in 1 week, and the second time, it lasted almost an entire day. We opened every window. We lit candles. Nothing covered it. Mark finally called the landlord. The landlord came, walked through the apartment, checked under the sink, looked at the walls near the stairs with a flashlight, and said he couldn't find anything. He said old buildings breathe. He said it was probably something in the pipes. He said it would pass. It passed that evening, right on schedule. Mark believed him, or he said he did. I wasn't sure anymore what any of us believed. I almost told Mark about the woman on a Wednesday night in late August. We were lying in bed, the fan turning slowly above us, the city outside quiet for once. He was almost asleep. I was staring at the ceiling, and she was there, behind my eyes, the way she always was when the apartment went still. I opened my mouth, then I closed it. What would I have said? There's an old woman with no eyes that appears in my mind every time I use the stairs, and I think she might be the reason the cat runs into walls. I ran through the sentence in my head, and it dissolved before it reached my lips. I turned onto my side. I watched Mark breathe. I said nothing. We moved out at the end of September. The lease was month to month, which was the one mercy that apartment gave us. We found a place across town, ground floor, newer building, no stairs, no smell. The cat walked through every room of the new apartment on the first day and fell asleep in the middle of the living room floor like she'd always lived there. She never panicked again, not once. We didn't talk about the old apartment much. There wasn't a single dramatic event to point to. No door slamming on its own, no voice in the dark, no apparition at the foot of the bed, just a smell we couldn't find, a staircase that felt wrong, and a kitten who ran into walls. It didn't feel like enough of a story, so we didn't tell it. We moved on. Time passed. A year went by. The 4th of July party was at Chris's place. He'd moved into his own apartment by then, a nice one. Top floor, good light. He'd grilled burgers. Someone had brought sparklers. It was the kind of evening that makes summer feel earned rather than endured. At some point, the three of us ended up on his small balcony. The city spread out below us. Faint pops of fireworks in the distance. Someone, I think it was Mark, mentioned the Tampa apartment, not in a serious way. The way you mention something that's just far enough away to be funny. That place was something, he said. Those stairs always freaked me out. I went still. I looked at him. They freaked me out too, I said. My voice came out careful, measured, like I was approaching something that might run if I moved too fast. Chris had been leaning on the railing, looking out at the city. He turned around. I swear, he said, there was an evil old lady with white hair in a bun with black. Mark and I both spoke at the same time. The three of us finished the sentence together. Glaring holes for eyes. No one spoke for a long moment. The fireworks continued somewhere in the distance. Small, colorful, indifferent. I don't know how long we stood there. It felt like the balcony had been lifted out of the evening and set somewhere separate, somewhere where the normal rules didn't apply. 3 people, 3 separate minds, 1 image, held in silence for over a year by each of us for the same reason, because it sounded insane, and we were afraid of what it would mean if we said it out loud. Chris was the first one to speak. None of you said anything, did you? Mark said. He hadn't. We went back inside eventually. We ate. We watched the fireworks from the window. We talked about other things, but the evening had changed. Not in a bad way exactly, but in the way a room changes when someone finally turns on a light you didn't know was missing. It's been 30 years. I don't know who she was. I don't know if she was ever anything more than an image, a shared frequency picked up by 3 minds in proximity to something we couldn't name. I've read about collective hallucinations, about the ways old buildings hold trauma, about infrasound and mold, and all the rational explanations people reach for when the irrational refuses to leave. None of them fully fit. What I know is this: 3 people who never compared notes, never spoke about what they felt, never gave each other permission to be afraid. We all saw the same woman, same hair, same bun, same holes where the eyes should have been. We still get goosebumps when it comes up, every single time. The cat never went near the stairs. She knew before any of us did. Some places aren't haunted the way stories say they are, with slamming doors and cold spots and things that go bump in the night. Some places are just wrong, quietly, persistently, completely wrong, and they wait, patient as anything, for someone to finally say what everyone already knows. We should have listened to the cat.